Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, and we're also going to stick to my home county of Skåne here in the very south of the country. We're returning to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some nice beers from these guys over the years, quite a few different styles, but that said, it's been about a year since I last did a review from them. The one that we're going to take a look at today though is one that caught my eye. It's not often that you find a beer exactly like this one, so I have to say I'm really looking forward to this. So fingers crossed it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head a little bit north of me here in Lund to Landskrona, where I used to teach science and maths, of course, and we're having a look at another beer from Brygghuset Finn. So this particular beer is called the Aussie New England IPA. It comes in at 6.7% ABV, and as the name suggests, this one is an Australian hopped hazy New England, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, this beer was released as part of the Lokal och Småskalig assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for July of 2021. You might be wondering why you haven't seen an unbox stream for my July order at the moment, but that is because this particular beer wasn't available for delivery, so I got this one and one from Elm 11 in the Hansa store down in Malmö actually, and you'll probably see that review come out in the next couple of days as well. But yeah, as you might know if you've watched the channel for any decent length of time, I spent a bit of time in Australia back in 2014 and 2015, and I actually have quite a bit of family down there as well actually, so I went out there at that time, and the craft beer scene was still in its kind of early stages, if you like, and it seems to have exploded since I was there last time. So I really need to get back to Australia and have a look at some of the new breweries that have popped up since then. But you know, quite a few of the hops that are in this beer were around at that time. So yeah, I think it's definitely cool to find this one, and when I saw it was an Australian hop New England IPA, I thought, right, I need to have that. So yeah, cool idea for Finn to put this one out, and hopefully it's as good as some of the other ones that we've had from them before. So yeah, let's crack on with this review then, and it's nice to return to these guys after quite a while, of course. But yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Brygghuset Finn before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Brygghuset Finn then, on to my brewery notes. So Brygghuset Finn, as I've mentioned to you already rather, are based in Landskrona, which is about halfway between me here in Lund to the south and Helsingborg to the north, in Skåne in the south of Sweden. And the company was founded by a couple of former students from my alma mater, Lund University. This was Peter Lindholm and Simon Frenberg, who studied entrepreneurship. So as part of their course, they had to create and plan a fictitious company, and for this they decided that they were going to plan a craft brewery. But Simon was an avid home brewer, and he brewed beer during his time in the university halls of residence, where they lived with their friend Joachim Larsson, who was the guinea pig for many of the early beers, but he is now the company's CEO. But after finishing university, the group found the perfect location for the brewery behind the old railway station in Landskrona. They ordered custom-made equipment towards the end of 2013, and they produced their first beers for sale in early 2014. But the following year, in 2015, Mats Hägerfors joined the company, and he's been instrumental in pushing the growth in recent years. So over the following years, they continued to expand their output, build up their equipment and things like this, and increase their sales. And then by 2019, they were producing around 300,000 litres of beer per year, and that year they also started their own beer festival, which is called Finn Family and Friends, and this will take place yearly, although I think the 2020 and 2021 festivals are not taking place because of COVID, so probably that is something that will reappear sometime in 2022. But in early 2020 they refreshed their bottle designs, basically spruced them up a little bit, and they underwent a further expansion of the brewery, which takes their brewing capacity up to 800,000 litres of beer per year. And as of July 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 125 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Brygghuset Finn for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that's it for your history section. So yeah, I need to get these guys on the channel at some point to do a Meet the Brewery segment. I need to start sending a few emails out and see if I can get a hold of certain people to start those, because I've got a few breweries in mind that I would like to do that with. But yeah, that is definitely something that I want to push over the next little while. So yeah, that's it would be nice to get Brygghuset Finn on it, and I think this is maybe my 8th or so review that I've done involving this brewery, and it's a bit of a shame that it's been about a year since I last reviewed one actually, so I maybe need to look at a few of the other beers, but I do have one of their other ones in the fridge that I'll review at some point quite soon as well, because it's supposed to be very, very good. But yeah, let's crack on with this review then and see how we get on. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. As you can see, it's got a lovely background to it. This one you can see all the Australian things and that, but yeah, the sort of label artwork and things is quite similar. If you're thinking this can is a little bit bigger, that's because it is. It's a half-litre can, this, and most of the Brygghuset Finn beers are released in the little kind of 330 Red Bull type cans. Or some of them, of course, are released in the 440s as well. But yeah, for some reason, they've gone with a half-litre for this one, and I'm not quite sure exactly why that is. But yeah, 6.7% hazy New England IPA, this one. It tells you on the back here, the Aussie New England IPA, the scorching sunlight burns the earth, even the koalas hide in the shade. We've made this continent-sized New England IPA with plenty of Australian hops, inspiration from the outback. Hops like Enigma, Ella, Galaxy, and the delightfully named Victoria's Secret hold the secret to this beer. It's got more hop than a roux. Store it in a dark, cool location, serve it between 8 to 10 degrees on its own or in the company of friends. So yeah, the hops that are in this one I am quite familiar with. Enigma is a big beast. It's actually quite similar to Nelson Sauvin. That I think it's about 14% alpha acid though, but Enigma is like Nelson Sauvin with the kind of gooseberry, white, green, grapey sort of notes, but it's got a little bit of a red fruity character to it as well. Ella is quite a big one as well, about 14-15% alpha acid, and it gives you quite a strong grapefruit from what I remember. It used to have a different name, and that name has gone right out of my head. But yeah, Galaxy as well. That is a big 14%. ABV beer. That's a big 14% alpha acid hop. That usually gives you quite a strong kind of pungent passion fruit and mango-y type thing. And then Victoria's Secret is quite similar to Galaxy, but a little bit lower in alpha acid. I think that's kind of 12%, and it's just the fruits are a little bit more kind of they're a bit more leaning towards the mango in Victoria's Secret from what I remember. It's a little bit softer in its fruity character. So yeah, that gives you a little bit of an idea of what we should be expecting from this beer. I do expect this one to be quite tropical and fruity leaning. But yeah, Enigma is a beautiful, beautiful hop, and I'd love to see more breweries having a go with Enigma, of course. So yeah, 6.7% New England Hazy IPA. This one I paid 50 Swedish kronor for this. Usually you'd pay about 45 for a Swedish brewed New England IPA. This, of course, is 500 millilitres rather than 440. So I'm not going to gripe them for five extra kroners for that. But yeah. Nicely presented beer, this one. Let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very much looking forward to this one. So yeah, this should be pretty nice. So the last beer that we had from Brygghuset Finn was a New England IPA. Was it like Hazy Orange Sun or something it was called? And that's one of the regular beers now actually. You can find that in quite a few different stores, but that was a very, very nicely done one actually, and you'll find that, as I say, in many different Systembolaget shops. But yeah, anyway, as you can see, and as you would expect, this one's poured a lovely kind of hazy, bright hazy colour. So before the head disappears, you can see that the head on this one is roughly it's between a half and you know, between a half and a kind of 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say, perfect white head. That it does have a few kind of more big bubbles sitting towards the top of it, but yeah, I think that's going to fade away quite quickly to be a nice kind of thin foamy layer there. But in terms of colour, as you can see, this one is a lovely sort of bright yellow, I would say. It's almost kind of similar to a mango juice. I always like comparing the New England IPAs to different fruit juices in terms of their appearance, and this one is definitely like a nice bright yellow mango juice. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use, that determines the magnitude of your colour. 2, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer, and any adjuncts or barrel aging are also going to play a role in that as well. The level of haziness on this one for, you know, a 6.7% is kind of, you know, average, I guess we could say. The level of haze on this one, it's not, you know, it's not kind of like the natural haze side, and it's not the kind of soupy gloopy kind of thing. It's somewhere in the middle, and that's to be expected. But remember, the level of haze in these beers depends on the oat and the wheat content along with the yeast. That can vary from brewery to brewery and even recipe to recipe. So getting caught up on the level of haze in these beers is a little bit pointless, to be honest with you. But yeah, those are the factors that affect it. But yeah, 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. The head has faded away to be a very kind of thin foamy layer now. But yeah, in terms of New England IPAs, this one certainly looks the part. So let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. I'm really curious to see what this has in store for us. Oh, right. So this is kind of interesting. Yeah, first off then, first impression of this beer is that it has a little bit of everything in it. So you can smell that this beer is, a little bit more of a kind of bread. It's got a nice kind of soft white bready character to it, I would say. There's a little bit of a bread crusty kind of thing going on, and you've also got a little bit of you've also got a little bit of a kind of wheaty bitiness there at the back of the nose, and some oaty qualities. You can detect all of those different things. As I've told you in previous reviews, in my opinion, there are 6 different directions that a New England IPA can go. They can be more yeasty and farmhousey, rye and grainy. Yeah, sorry, rye leaning and grainy, I should say. Wheaty and bitey, oaty and creamy, barley malt leaning and bready, or they can be a little bit more kind of brown sugary leaning, and that's usually with malts like Cara Munich and Cara Pils and, you know, things like this. So those are the different directions. Quite often though, these beers will display multiple characteristics. But yeah, straight off the bat with this one, I get a nice kind of soft white bready character in there. You can smell a little bit of that sort of sweeter character from the oats. You do get 1 or 2 little kind of crackery elements out of it as well, which I think is more to do with the yeast, and it smells very familiar. The note that you get out of this one, actually, it reminds me quite a bit actually of the New England IPAs that you get from Fermentarana. So I do wonder if these guys are maybe using the same yeast in there. But it was quite similar to the New England IPAs that we had from Stockholm Brewing Company as well, with that soft crackery note and the kind of, you know, the sort of airy yeasty kind of element that it has, the slightly woody note. So yeah, but you do certainly get a wee bit of wheaty character at the back of the nose with this beer as well. So yeah, just to break down the malt base for you then, and we've kind of done it already, but yeah, you can smell that the base of this beer, it's a soft white bready character, a little bit of bread crust in there. There's definitely some smooth wheat elements in there with a little bit of bitiness at the back of the nose too. You get a bit of an oaty creaminess on top of it, but you know, the more that you smell of this beer, it becomes a little bit sort of crackery and a little bit kind of grainy in a sense. So you do get a wee bit of that, and there's a wee touch of a kind of farmhousey yeast in there, maybe even a little hint of banana actually from the wheat. So some interesting things I think in this beer coming out from the yeast. I'm trying to figure out if I'm getting, you know, a little bit of biscuit or something. I think there might be a little touch of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing in the malty side of the beer. But yeah, just if there is that, it's just a little kind of tiny touch. But yeah, the malty yeasty kind of thing in this comes across quite nicely. And as I say, it does remind me quite a little bit of the IPAs that I've had recently from Fermentarana up in Strömstad. They're an awesome brewery, by the way, and I'd highly recommend that you check them out if you get the chance. But yeah, something very, very familiar about the yeasty components coming out of this beer. But yeah, let's have a little look at the hoppy side of things then. So yeah, for me, the hoppy side of this beer is quite interesting. The green component I don't find overly pungent, but remember, New England IPAs rely on late addition hops. West Coast IPAs tend to be more about the early addition hops, along with lots of late addition and dry hopping. But yeah, during the early stage of your wort boil, you add, that's when you get the bittering hops in there, and over the course of the wort boil you progressively have a trade-off from bitterness in favour of flavour and aroma. So yeah, a New England IPA is going to have a wort boil of between 60 and 90 minutes, just again depends on the recipe and the brewery and so on. But the green component for me, there's a little touch of earthiness in there, there's some really nice big floral notes as well, but I don't find them overly kind of spicy or overly kind of piney and resinous or anything like that. You don't get too much of that in this beer, and again that might be because of the fact that this one relies heavily on late addition hops. If you add any of these big high alpha acid hops early on though, you will get a lot of that green component, but on the grassy side of things it's got a nice little bit of a kind of smoothness to it, and also a little bit of a kind of citrusy zesty quality as well. So yeah, the aroma coming out of this one I think is very, very nice. So yeah, the fruity side of this beer I think is also definitely worth noting as well, and I think the grassy, the sort of zestiness that you get from the grassy side of the beer kind of mixes in with that quite well. And to be honest with you, it's the fruity side of this beer is exactly what I kind of would have envisioned from seeing these hops actually. So yeah, quite a lot of soft tropical character in this one. You can smell a little bit of the galaxy in behind there, giving you that more pungent passion fruit, if you like. And you do, I think the Ella is maybe taking a bit of a back seat. I think the Ella's kind of, the Ella's maybe giving you just a tiny little bit of grapefruit actually, but I'm sure it'll maybe come out a little bit more in the taste actually. But I get a lot of mango out of this one, definitely a wee bit of a kind of apricot papaya sort of thing, and I would say that those lighter notes are most likely to come from the Victoria's Secret, but you get a lovely sort of gooseberry note out of this beer, and that's that one is most definitely the Enigma. Enigma's a beautiful hop. Wish more breweries were using that, as I say, but you can smell that nice kind of gooseberry note coming out of the beer. You get a little bit of that gooseberry sort of thing, but you can smell a little bit of that kind of red fruity, almost like, I don't know if it's cranberries, but there's definitely a little bit of a kind of red fruity, red curranty kind of thing to this beer as well. One thing, and I forget which, it was one of the beer tubers I was talking to about the Ella hop. It might well have been Harry, of course, Harry at Blue Nose Beer Reviews. He's a brewer, so he's likely to know all of these things. But he was telling me that he always found Ella to be a little bit sort of aniseedy, like a little bit licoricey. So yeah, and in fairness, I can see in the aroma you do get a little bit of that kind of that fruity side of licorice on the nose as well. You can kind of smell that mixing in with the sort of gooseberry and the kind of little red currant note that you're getting from the Enigma in this one. So yeah, the fruity notes that you get out of this beer are very, very interesting, but it's quite well balanced between that gooseberry, red curranty kind of thing from the Enigma, and then the tropical fruits that you're going to get from the Ella, the Galaxy, and the Victoria's Secret in this one. But yeah, interesting smelling beer, this one. Lots of food for thought, but I think it is about time that we have a taste of this one now then. So yeah, this one is the Aussie New England IPA, coming in at 6.7% ABV from Brygghuset Finn in Landskrona here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. Let's get stuck into this one then. Very curious to see what it has in store for us. Slanja, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's very, very nice actually. It's got quite a bit of bite to it, this beer. That's my first impression of it. This one does have a nice wee bit of bitiness to it. But nothing wrong with that at all. It's pretty fresh as well. It says on the back that this one was canned on the 15th of June 2021, and I'm reviewing this one for you on the 2nd of July. So Pretty damn fresh. Been in the can just a couple of weeks. And I will say as well that the green component is certainly coming out a little bit more sort of strongly than the than it was in the Aroma. So yeah, got a nice little bit of bite to it, this one, which is what we want. So yeah, cans lined up, my OCD is happy. But yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this beer for you. As I said, you know, the yeast, I suspect the yeast might be the same as what they use at Fermentarana, but this beer is a little bit, it comes across as a little bit drier, and it's got a little bit more wheaty bite than the ones that they do. Like, I think this overall, if we're talking about where this beer kind of lies, it does lean a little bit more towards that wheaty, bitey side of things. But I like that. I think that suits the green component that this beer has as well. Perhaps though, if you drink this beer a little bit further down then, you know, in a week or two, it might sort of mellow out in a sense. That's the thing you have to remember with New England IPAs. If you drink these too early, they can be a little bit green. But I've always said, and I've been told, I think I was told by a brewer, I think that's where I got that from, that, you know, if you drink these about, you know, give them about 2-3 weeks in the can, that's when you get them just in a nice state of freshness rather than being overly green. So bear that in mind with your hazy New Englands. But yeah, let's break the flavour of this beer down a little bit then. So yeah, straight away across the middle of your palate then you can feel that nice sort of crisp white bready sort of thing there. That goes across there really nicely. If you go to either end of that middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of a bread crusty sort of thing there, and you can feel a nice kind of thin layer of wheat just sitting on top of that. The wheat gives it a little bit of smoothness, and as you go into the back third of your palate, you can feel that it has a little bit of that bitiness. We'll come back to that later. We'll focus on the middle third of your palate just now. So yeah, smooth white bready note in there, a little bit of bread crusty character at either end of the middle third of your palate there, and then you've got that smooth bready note just sitting on top of it, which I very much like. But yeah, sitting on top of that like that kind of lighter wheaty layer, you can feel a little bit of the oaty character coming out of this beer. And what I would say about the oats is it's kind of like they go down the middle line of your tongue. They feel like quite thick in the very middle of your palate, and then they sort of just, you can feel they just sort of spread out a little bit as you go across to the sides of your palate, and the sweetness of that builds the further that you go into the aftertaste. So I really like how that goes together as well. The way that these beers go together in that sense, really nice. I do remember the last one from Brygghuset Finn having a little bit of a kind of having a little bit of a kind of more oaty sweetness to it as well. So that's interesting for sure. It's carried on, but yeah, sitting in the dead centre of that middle third of your palate, you've got a little circle in there, and you get a little touch of a kind of Werther's Original. You get a little bit of that kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing, and that's the boozy part of the beer, of course. I don't think that this beer has a sort of brown sugary malt in it. I think this one might be kind of straight shooting in a sense. You know, you maybe get a little touch of a biscuity note, like a biscuity grainy sort of thing, as you push out towards the extremities of that middle third of your palate. And in fairness, when you go from the dead centre of your palate towards the back of that front third of your tongue, you can feel a little bit of dryness just going down that central line of your tongue. Quite often that's a wee bit of a telltale sign of you know, that's quite often a telltale sign of a bit of Pilsner malt. So I do wonder about that in this beer, but you get a lot of bite from the wheat in this, and again, that might just be due to how kind of fresh it is, and I think the hoppy component is playing a role in that too. But yeah, this is quite a straight shooting malt base, this one, but it works for the beer. But into the back third of your palate then, border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you can feel a little bit of a bready build up again, and there's also a little bit of you know, a kind of wheaty bite in there. But on the back third of your palate, as I say, when you go into that, you can feel that the sort of wheaty bitiness just builds up there. So yeah, on top of that you get a little bit of a kind of thicker, smoother white bready note, and then on top of that you can feel that, how would you say, you can definitely feel that kind of more airy, yeasty character there. So as you move, as you move from the back of the palate in this one further forward, you can feel the flavours quite light and airy in the back and quite tall, but then it condenses down as you go further forward. Then the flavours are kind of squished together in the middle third of your tongue. But yeah, I think it works. The malty component of this beer goes together really nicely. But on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of your palate, you can feel there's a little touch of earthiness there. So yeah, and as you go further forward, that very quickly converts to quite a sort of spicy, it converts to a sort of quite spicy floral aromaticity there. And I do suspect the spicy character is coming from the Ella, but as I say, all of the hops in this one are capable of giving you that big spicy component, but it doesn't feel so piney. There's maybe a little bit of that as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate underneath, but it's quite a big spicy floral aromaticity. Then round the front curve of the palate, it's lighter and more grassy, and you do get a wee bit of zestiness on that front tip of the tongue too. So quite an interesting green component to this one as well. But let's focus on the front third of your palate and the kind of fruity, juicy side of things. So yeah, let's look at that. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of a kind of bready build up in there, and there's a wee bit of a kind of bread crusty quality to that as well. Then the base of that front third of your palate, it's kind of smooth and kind of soft and bready underneath it, and you can feel that there's a little bit of a smoother, kind of thicker white bread sitting on top of that. So that's kind of interesting. Then on top of that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. At the back of that front third of the palate, there's a very distinctive, quite powerful and pungent grapefruity note. As you move further forward from that, and that grapefruity note incidentally is most likely to be the Ella, but as you move further forward from that, you get a bit more of it mellows out a little bit, and you start to get the passion fruity notes, which are going to come both from Galaxy and from the Victoria's Secret. And as you reach just the middle, the kind of dead centre of that front third of your palate, it's a lot more oily and mango-like. Now, there's maybe teeny little hints of, apricot and a bit of pineapple or something like that, but to me, the tropical fruit kind of comes across as quite mango-y in that sense. The other little notes that I'm maybe picking up are a little bit hard to detect, to be honest with you. So yeah, take that with a pinch of salt. But as you go into the front half of that middle third of your palate, you definitely get the Enigma. The Enigma gives you that lovely, you can feel that the base of that front half of the front third of your tongue is definitely quite sort of gooseberry-like. Absolutely, white, green grapes, gooseberries, it's like that. It reminds me of like Hallertau Blanc, Nelson Sauvin, these kind of hops. Hallertau Blanc, incidentally, is a really good hop, a really lovely hop if you can find a couple of beers with that in it. Lovely stuff. But you can definitely feel that the Enigma dominates, and the Enigma's the one there that's holding the front part of that front third of your tongue together, and it gets oily. That front part of the front third of your tongue gets oilier and oilier the further that you go into the aftertaste with it. As I say, it's gooseberry. It's a little bit, it's gooseberry. There's a little bit of a white, green, grapey sort of thing with this one, and yeah, I don't get so much of the kind of red curranty kind of thing out of this before. I don't get so much of the red fruity notes that I've got from Enigma in the past, but there's a teeny little hint of it there. So yeah, it's interesting. It does come across more like the straight up Hallertau Blanc or the Nelson Sauvin. I'd probably lean more towards the Hallertau Blanc and the slightly oily character that you get from that. So if I was tasting this blind, I don't know if I would be able to notice the difference. I always like playing guess the hops with these beers, but obviously Australian hops are a little bit harder compared to the American ones because we don't come across them all that often. But yeah, this is a lovely beer, this one. If they could do this every year and re-release it, I think that would be awesome, because Aussie hops I think deserve a little bit more attention. I know there's a bunch of hops being grown in like Brazil and I think in Argentina as well. It'd be cool if they could do like a Latin American hopped IPA as well, or Slovenian hopped IPA with like Styrian Wolf and Styrian Dragon and things could also be really cool. So if they could do a few seasonal beers like this, that would be great. But I guess they can't make this a regular because of supply issues and things. But you know, that aside, this is a very, very nicely done New England IPA, so it gets a thumbs up from me. I like the balance it has between the tropical and you know, the more oily, fruity components. It's got a real bite to it though, so this one's quite a kind of spicy, floral, and you know, wheaty, bitey New England IPA. It's got a good bit of crispness to it as well. So I think that on this note, we should go on to the mouthfeel. So overall, I would say that this beer is kind of, it's mid-bodied, it's right in the middle of the spectrum. Yeah, mid-bodied, smooth carbonation. It's got a nice little bit of a kind of oily character to it as well, which I quite like. It's got a little bit of slickness in there, but yeah, it goes together. It goes together very, very well. So yeah, I think it works. I think it does work very, very nicely in that sense. In terms of hoppy bitterness, I feel this one is a little bit more bitter, but it might just be the freshness. I might want to say that this one's about 40-ish. Maybe even 50 IBUs, a little bit more than that. But again, freshness. Might just be a little bit of the kind of green and a wee bit of the bitiness of the wheat in there. So pinch of salt again. Remember, IBUs are one of my weakest points of beer reviewing. But the malt base, nice and smooth, bit of wheaty bitiness in there. And it does sweeten up slightly as you go further into the aftertaste. The fruity side of the beer has a bit of bite to it from the tropical fruits, but it gets a little bit more oily as it mellows out. There's a nice oily mango in there and that oily kind of gooseberry thing as well. But yeah, oily fruits I think are probably the best, and you get a wee bit of citrusy zest on the front tip of the tongue as well from those grassy esters. But yeah, lovely beer this one, and I'm glad that I got to review this. So yeah, we can round off this review there then. So this one is the Aussie New England IPA, 6.7% ABV from Brygghuset Finn in Landskrona here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know your favourite beers are from Brygghuset Finn. We will return to these guys again at some point soon. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and see you very soon.